So as I said, we have 10 successful inventors. We've heard from Kevin Harrington, and now we're going to hear from Tara Williams. Her product is amazing. It's a baby product. It's a Dreamland baby, the weighted blanket. She's got the prototype as well. But before we get to that, what I'd like to do is have Jenny share a short video so our viewers can actually get to see the product up close and see how it works.
Get just 1 to 3 hours of uninterrupted sleep per night. In a world that places more demands on parents than ever before, your baby sleeping through the night is critical. Introducing Dreamland Baby, a wearable weighted blanket designed to naturally reduce your baby's stress and increase relaxation through deep pressure stimulation.
At 5.5 months old, our son Luke was still waking up every 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Like so many other new parents, we were desperate for sleep.
One night, I placed a heavy throw blanket on him and noticed he immediately calmed down. A light bulb went off in my head. He needs a weighted blanket. With the help of my mother-in-law, we sewed a prototype.
The first night wearing his Dreamland wearable weighted blanket, he slept for 12 hours. We couldn't believe how immediately his sleep was improved.
Each Dreamland wearable blanket is tailored perfectly to your baby's body weight. The 0 to 6 month is under a pound, and the 6 to 12 month is just over 1.5 pounds. This gentle weight increases serotonin and melatonin while decreasing cortisol to help your baby fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. A recent study reported weighted blankets are not only safe for infants, but also significantly increased calm feelings. This resulted in sustained sleep patterns. Our products are handcrafted for the highest quality. Not only do they look adorable, but Dreamland is 100% natural, soft cotton. The inner beads are food grade, safe, and non-toxic. We use reliable YKK double zippers that open from the top and the bottom to help with those midnight diaper changes. We set out to create a swaddle that keeps baby's arms secure and is convenient for parents. The ingenious removable wing separates, allowing you to use the swaddle while the wing is being washed, or completely remove it if baby rolls before 6 months.
Our trusted manufacturing partners are ready to go. All we need is your support. Big or small, it all makes a difference. From our Dreamland family to yours.
Wow, Tara, what a beautiful family. And it's funny, you talk about the Dreamland blanket as your 5th child.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of inventors feel about their product. So that, for our viewers, is a little bit about the product itself, but why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you did before you became an inventor.
Yeah. Well, I'll start by saying when I watched that video, it is like truly cringeworthy to me because we started this, this whole operation is bootstrapped, and that was my first introduction to the world. And I think I had paid about $300 to have that video done. So when I watch it now, I'm like, oh, but disclaimer. So my name is Tara Williams. You just saw my family. I have 4 kids. Prior to starting Dreamland Baby, I had been in the medical device space in marketing and sales roles with some big companies, but mostly startups, and been doing that for about 10 years. Really loved it. Really engaging, rewarding work. However, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. From the time I was a little girl, my college essay was about salesmanship and entrepreneurialism, and it's just something that's it's always been inside of me. So over the years, I had come up with different ideas, and I laugh now in hindsight because most of the ideas I came up with were something where, it's an app, or it's just something so outrageous that I would need a $500 million VC round to accomplish, and scientists, that I don't have the expertise in. Or on the flip side, I'd come up with these different ideas that were more an as seen on TV. So over the years, I was always thinking of different ideas, and I had another business venture. I tried to have my own business, being like a blogger basically, and doing showing the clothing I was wearing, and that didn't work out for me. So, I think a lot of times people will see, oh, Dreamland Baby has such incredible growth and has been such an incredible success, but this comes off 10 years of having bad ideas, starting different companies or working for startups. In fact, before I had my fourth son, Luke, while I was on maternity leave, I was with a startup. And while I was on maternity leave, they actually shut their doors and closed because they did not work out. So the road has had lots of successes, but failures too, to lead me where I am right now. What did I answer it all?
Yeah, no, it's so wonderful to hear about the journey, because a lot of inventors, they are at a point, they might be at a point where you were back then, when it's tough to face those obstacles, and to hear from somebody who's been there and yet didn't give up. Like, some people might stop after their first idea doesn't make it, and it sounds like you've had more than one. Yeah. But you kept going. In fact, we have Q&A at the end, but one question right now from Kenneth, it's just so on point, I have to jump ahead and ask it. And they said, what gave you the courage to pursue it when you have that eureka moment and it hasn't worked out in the past? What made you try one more time with this baby blanket, thinking that this would be the idea that makes it?
I think the primary difference with this was, and I'll set the stage, this probably could not have been a worse time in my life to start a business. It's like, as a mother, people are like, when is a good time to have a baby? There's no good time to be pregnant and have a baby if you out of work. And same thing, there's no good time. There might be a good time to start a business, but usually you're doing something else, right? So we have the 4 kids. Our kids are really close in age. So when my son Luke was born, my fourth, my oldest was only 5. So we have 4 kids in 5 years. We had just bought a house that was at the very top of our budget. And we had looked at our finances and we're like, okay, with this that we're making combined, like, we're okay. My husband got laid off from his job of 15 years the day before my son was born. Wow. And then I got laid off on maternity leave. So we were really in this panic time of, we have 4 really little kids. We just bought this house and we have this baby relentlessly crying, waking up every couple of hours. And we have no money. So what are we going to do? I'm going to start a business. So, it spoke volumes of the product, because at the time we knew my husband, just based off the job he had, that he was not going to find something for probably 6 months to a year that was equivalent. And so he was actually really pushing me, go back to work just to get health insurance. We were paying, I think almost $10,000 in COBRA. So it was really insane how much the health insurance cost. So he was pushing me to go back, and I just had this feeling like and I was interviewing, but I was like, there's something better that I should be doing. And I had a couple great offers, but I was like, there's just something better. And then I came up with the idea for Dreamland Baby. And it was one night we were just sitting on our couch. My older kids had gone to bed. We were with the baby. We laid a heavy throw blanket on him. And like I said in the video, he immediately calmed down. A calm came over his face, and it was just very obvious, like, he needs a weighted blanket. So I went online to try to find it, and there are weighted blankets, but not wearable. So when I say wearable, I mean this literally, like, the baby wears it. So it's safe, meaning it can't migrate on their face because it's anchored down by the arm and neck hole. So that we are very rule followers in terms of safe sleep. And so I asked my mother-in-law to make it. She made the first one. First night he slept for 12 hours. It was incredible. And so I could have stopped there and said, well, now I have a sleep solution for my son. But being that entrepreneur spirit, I immediately thought, wow, this is incredible. It was so immediate. It was so effective. And just knowing where me and my husband and our entire family was, and now where we are because we're getting sleep, like, it was just, I can't not pursue this. And so, but really, like, to answer his question, what was my eureka moment? It was when I started telling people about it. So I have had all these crazy ideas, and you'd see reactions from people like, or sounds good. How are you going to do it? But with this, it was very simple. Across the board, it was, that's an amazing idea. How doesn't that already exist? Or can I buy one? Can your mother-in-law make one for my friend? I mean, it was so overwhelming that everybody wanted it or just was so ecstatic when they heard it. Like, what a cool idea. Or I use a weighted blanket. I would love one of those for my daughter. So that's not to say that inventors don't have ideas and the whole world says, you're crazy, that's never going to work. And it does. But for this, it was just so astounding that 10 out of 10 of the people I spoke with were like, that's an obvious idea. It's so obvious. How does it not exist? So to me, it felt like that was a very early on market validation, but I still thought there's no way someone has not got a patent on this. So that was the first thing that I did before spending months and hours and all this. I called a patent prosecutor in my local area and I asked her, can we look this up? And I said, here's the other companies that I think could have this patent. So I did a lot of upfront work to try to reduce the cost of her searching for it. And after we verified, somebody could come out of the woodwork in Germany that has a patent, but it doesn't look like any one of these major brands that you've discussed has this patent. So then we went forward to get a provisional patent on it. And that's when the line was drawn in the sand. And then it was, for me, I had 1 year to figure out, is this a marketable product and can I make it market ready? So that's a really long-winded answer, but I just wanted to give you the background that, there's no perfect.
I mean, that background, it's incredibly helpful. I mean, and what you said is about there not being a perfect time to have a baby or to start a business. I often, in my practice, I say a variation of that is that ideas don't come at the perfect time. I mean, I've had clients in the past, they're going through a divorce and they get an idea, or then in the middle of college, or in your case, both income earners in the family have lost their jobs. I mean, what could be a worse time? And you just recently had, you said, Luke, your son was born. So what could be a worse combination? And then to be laid off during maternity leave. I mean, I can't imagine.
You can't even make that up. I mean, it was just like bam, bam. We our heads were spinning. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's important to know, because what I see a lot of times is ideas not pursued, and it's heartbreaking because inventors will come into my office seeing a competing product finally launch, and they would say, wait, I had this 7 years ago, but I was going through a difficult divorce, or I just got laid off, or I was in college and I didn't have any money to pursue it. Now, until 2013, the US was on a first to invent system, and you could still, if you could prove you invented first, there was hope. But now after 2013, it's first to file. So speed is everything. Was that an obstacle for you also in terms of funding? And, it's easy to say, go ahead and, file the patent first, but how do you advise that to a mom who's been laid off on maternity leave? Her husband's lost his job as well, and she just has a baby. It's hard to file first. How did you kind of balance that? And just bought a house. I forgot. And just bought a house at the same time as well.
Yeah. I think so. If you guys had seen it on Shark Tank, I shared it there, but it was a really interesting time because we had no money coming in, but when in the state of California, you do get a maternity leave. It's a disability. So, but it doesn't go into your normal bank account. It goes into a separate bank account. So I don't want to say we forgot about the money, but this money had been going into another account and I wasn't touching it until basically it was done, and it was $14,000. So I don't know that my husband really knew about it. He didn't really know about it. So I remembered and thought, oh my gosh, like I have this $14,000 and that's what I used to start the business. So I know that's not really a good answer, but the second thing I did for funding, because we had no money, I went to my parents and I went to my family and I said, hey, and they've always believed in me. If I said, I'm going to create an app that cures cancer, they'd be like, you can do it. So they've always believed in me. Have they offered funding before? No, but they knew the situation I was in and they really believed in the product. I mean, right away, they were like, this is amazing. Like, this is going to change lives. Like, we've seen it change your life. So I borrowed $50,000 from my sister, kudos to her because she's 28 and had discretionary income of that amount. And it was for 1 year interest free. And then I borrowed, and I took on an investment from my parents for another $50,000. And I gave them 3% equity in the company. And this was before we had a product. It was just an idea. So out the gate, I did have $114,000, which I'm sure to people on the line, they're like, man, that would be great. But there are ways to get it. So beyond that money, I also tapped into Kickstarter. So that's where I got that first initial money for my first round of production.
Mhm.
And I will say, actually, for my sister, she gave me the money actually a little bit later than my parents. So I didn't have 114 at the same time. I had about 64 to start, and then I had 50,000 later. And I did pay her back. So it was kind of a bridge just to place more inventory order. But the Kickstarter, I think, is the easiest, fastest, quickest way if people are really bootstrapping like I was and just have zero money. I mean, you at the end of the day, you need some money to start this. I'm not going to say you can start it on zero. If you want to pull a patent, that's a couple $1,000s. There's just other fees involved. I mean, at the time, my startup closed, I didn't even have a computer. Like, I had to buy a computer. So, I mean, there's just some basic things you need. My phone was with my startup company. So I literally had to put like my nice Mac phone and my Apple, everything, and send it back. So not only was I laid off, I didn't even have a phone or a computer. So those things were what I considered part of my startup fees, because you need a computer. So there were a lot of things like that are just basics that you need. And so, obviously, if you can borrow from friends and family, for some people that's not comfortable. After I had paid my sister the 50,000 back because she was looking to buy a house, and so she said, "Hey, I do need the money back." We would have been at about zero in our bank account. So I actually asked my husband, "Hey, can we pull 50,000 out of the house?" Because we had like a line of credit on our house. And I said, "It's going to be short term. Like, I will pay it back, but I can't buy inventory without it." So all along the way, I've definitely pulled money. I'm a finance major and my husband is in finance. So to us, we're like, we do not want to pay interest on it. So with a commercial loan, you'd be paying 11 to 20, 30% interest, depending on where and how you get it. So that to me just did not make sense. So I was like, if there's any other scrappy way I can go about it. And again, I know that not for everybody will a family be able to offer, or, a house, but that's how I was able to do it. And that worked out for me.
Okay. And it's, certainly it's still bootstrapping. And sometimes it's one thing to have, immediate family or friends that believe in you, but to get them to invest, that's a whole nother level of commitment. And it's, sometimes it's even extra pressure for the inventor, because now not only is it a family member but you see them all the time. You see them at Thanksgiving dinner, you see them at Christmas. It's like, hey, that 50,000, I need that back. You're like, oh wait, I need it just a little bit longer. And
I felt an incredible amount of pressure to make this successful, because I knew I had to pay my sister back. And I also knew, like, there's no outside money. My husband still wasn't working. I didn't take a salary from this for a year and a half. So there was no money. I mean, I was like, this has to work. We have to make it work. So I do believe that sometimes when your back is completely against the wall, it feels like the worst place to be, but it's giving you that extra motivation to accomplish what you need to and put in those extra hours, because it's like sink or swim. And that's how it was for me. I was like, I have to make this work. There's
no other way, right? You get at a point where there's the only way out is up. And that's inspiring.
The other thing that I would definitely say, because I do have people ask me a lot, I would not have quit my job to start Dreamland Baby. So I would have continued to work at my other job, because at the beginning, there's a lot of waiting period where you file the patent and you're waiting, and then you're looking for a manufacturer and partner and you're waiting, and then you get samples and you're waiting. And so there's a lot of dead time. So I do have 4 kids, and because I was working full-time, we had a nanny. So we did let our nanny go. And I was a full-time mom, watching my 4 kids. So that was like my job. And then I was also doing Dreamland Baby. we didn't bring on a nanny until actually this summer. So I had run it for almost 2 years. And again, like I was considered being a mom, my job, but if I hadn't got laid off from my startup, I would not have left. And I would strongly advise no one to leave their current job until you are replacing your current income. For me, I didn't feel right interviewing and going to a new company and saying, oh, I'm committed to growth and being here long term, when I knew it was just a bridge gap for me, just to make money in between, just ethically. So that's why I decided to pursue staying home with my kids and then doing Dreamland Baby also. So I was balancing the two jobs. And then people say, well, how could you possibly do this with 4 kids? And so I would wake up at 5 a.m. I would work until 8 o'clock. I would bring them to school. My baby slept for 3 hours during the day while my kids were at school. So that was another 3-hour block that I got in. And then my husband was really great. When he came home from work at 5 or 6, I would work again from like 6 to 9. So I still got about 9 hours of work in the day for Dreamland Baby, even though, and some days were less, some days were more. Some days my kids, when they came home from school, they were just sitting on, watching TV. But because people say, how could you possibly do this with 4 kids? You just make it work. And again, if I had had a job and I had a nanny, I would have continued doing my job and doing this also until probably last spring is when I probably would have quit. And then I took my first paycheck in May of 2019. So it was about a year and a half after I came up with the idea.
Yeah, wow. So that Beth has a question that kind of ties in with that, and that's she wants to know the timeline from when you had just the concept to your first prototype that worked. How long did that take? And the second part of her question is how long from the first prototype to the first one that you sold, the first sale?
So I think my product is a little bit easier, I should say, easier than others because it's a garment, right? So there's no electronics in here. There's no molding or tooling that needed to be done. So we could have this go to market, I think, quicker than maybe something else. So I came up with the idea August 2018. That's when my son was 6 months old and I had that eureka night. Then I got my first so my mother-in-law made my first prototype 2 weeks later. And honestly, it looks very similar to this. Like we've refined it and we've added, extra stitching and things like that. But the concept and the core was what it is that you see today, 2 weeks later. So I know that can't happen with all products. And then I started looking for US manufacturers because I really wanted to produce in the US. And I found a local seamstress and she was charging me $125 for each of these to make because they're really labor intensive. Even now, mass producing, they take about 3 hours each because in each of these pockets are beads. And my factory has created a tool now, so they're getting faster and faster, but they have to hand stitch these pockets because if the needle hits the plastic beads, it breaks the needle. So they have to actually move them by hand and then hand stitch them. So they take a really long time to make. And that's part of what is reflected in the retail cost. So I had that local manufacturer. I found her probably in like October, November 2018. And then at the same time, I was working to find an international factory in China because I realized it's just not feasible to do it in the US. So we got the cost down drastically. And then we started sending our prototypes that I had made in the US to them. And then we were going back and forth because I was saying the neckline's not right. The arms are too big or too small. We want a brighter white fabric, like just all that. So that went back and forth. And then it was in April of 2019 that I placed the order for 1,000 of them. I felt like we had got it dialed in. I launched the Kickstarter in May of 2019. And then though the Kickstarter reward was getting sent out to people in August of 2019, I launched the website September 2019. And that's actually when I filmed Shark Tank. So I had been talking with the Shark Tank producers almost all of 2019. And we were live for about 3 weeks when I went on and filmed. And then that aired in May 2020. And that was really like the catalyst for us. Just, I won't say we're a household name, but getting in front of 5 million people was huge for us. in addition, January, February, March so Q1 pretty much of 2020, we hardly had any inventory. So in 2019, I was still new at ordering and I didn't place my order in time, and we kept getting bumped from the production line because we were small. And so all of Q1, I had hardly any inventory. So I wasn't really able to do marketing efforts and different things. At that time, we were still doing between like 30 and 50,000 in revenue per month, just because I didn't have inventory to send out. And then in April, we got inventory and we ramped up our marketing. And then May was Shark Tank. And then it's been, just since then.
Okay. It's funny, I'm getting, Christopher is apologizing for spamming so many questions, because he's just, you're inspiring a lot of people, because this is, a lot of inventors are at that place where you were when you're trying to make that decision. One of his questions were, and it's funny when you talk about you never would have decided to quit your job and start. A lot of things that happens in business, and especially with inventors, they're not decisions. You didn't make a decision to start this idea without a job. It's just you were laid off, so you didn't have a job. His question is, what made you decide to try to launch it and venture it yourself instead of licensing it to an established baby company?
So it's interesting because I made a deal with Lori Grenier on Shark Tank, and part of the stipulation of the deal was that we would license it to somebody. And so when I thought about that, I thought, well, yeah, that would be that'd be great money wise. But going back to like me being an entrepreneur, like this, when I look at my life, I joke with my husband because I've always wanted I'm one of 5, and I always wanted 4 kids. And I've loved the neighborhood we lived in. His parents live here and we would come visit them. And, and I tell him all the time, like, I am living the dream of my life. And my dream is to be a CEO or, a founder of a company. And so like this part of it, growing the business, growing the brand, doing the sales, like this is what I love. I literally couldn't be happier. So I'm not necessarily looking for like, okay, let's just have somebody license it. And I want that, $2 royalty per unit or 30 cents, whatever it would be. Like, I want to do this. Like, I am so energized. I wake up every morning and I'm like, I love what I do. I love being my own boss. I love being able to build a team and being a leader. And I'm really into, self growth and things. And now I've at first I was listening to all kinds of podcasts on how to build a business. Now I'm listening to leadership ones because I'm building a team. So, I mean, this is, it's possible I could have licensed it, but this is what I love. And, I really wanted to see like what I could do building the brand.
Yeah, it's funny. It's but what do you think about that statement? And I've heard it before is from inventors, is that the best part about creating and launching a product or building a business is not the money or the product or what results from that, but how it changes you and what you become as a result of that. Would you say that's true? Do you think the journey has changed you for the better?
Absolutely. I think so. When I look at, in 2015, I started my business as being a blogger. And I know a blogger gets a bad rap, but I started it because I read an article about this other fashion blogger, and she had made $1 million on one sales channel. And I thought, wow, she looks like me. We're the same height. We literally look pretty similar. I wear the same clothes she wears. Like, I could do that. I want to make $1 million, right?
Yep.
And so I went into this blogging space with the North Star being the revenue and that payout and that $1 million, right? And the entire, I told my husband, I'm going to do it for a year. He hated every step of it because he had to take the pictures of me and it was very demasculating to him. So we got in fights all the time, but I said, I'm going to commit to 1 year of doing this. I still had a full-time job. It was just something I did on the side, but I don't love fashion. I don't love photography, and I don't love being in front of a camera. So none of it was my genius spot, I'll say. And the entire year, I felt like I was swimming against a current. And when I look back, it was, and you see all the bloggers who are successful and they say, it sounds very cliche, but it's follow your passion, right? And blogging and writing about my clothing and clothing in general is not my passion. So for me, it was not fulfilling or rewarding, and it felt really hard, right? But with Dreamland Baby, I, and just a side tangent, I have so many thoughts in my head. I just want to tell everybody everything. But for the years that I was trying to find my product, I would look at other companies and say, GoPro, for example, the camera that goes on the head.
Yep.
They invented it because they were snowboarders and they wanted to capture themselves doing their activity. And I loved this company called Suja Juice. And it was this girl in Southern California who was a yoga and fitness instructor. And, she had allergies. And so she created this juice for her. And I remember reading those stories and saying, like, where's my passion though? I don't have a hobby. Like, I enjoy working out and running, but like, what is my passion? And I didn't realize until I created the product that my passion and my hobby is being a mom, which if you knew me, you'd say, really? That's your passion? But my family is everything to me. And that is, I'm invested in my kids' personal growth. So that's my passion. So when I started this company, and also like personal development and growth is my passion. And so when I saw how miserable I was not sleeping, I was a bad mom. I was a bad wife. If I had been working, I would have been a bad employee. I was not functioning at my personal best because I wasn't getting sleep. So when I came up with this product, it really mirrored the things that I'm passionate about in my life. So when I see that parent that is not sleeping and they're miserable and they're not enjoying parenting, or just the journey of loving their baby and their husband or their wife at the time, it's because the key element is they're not sleeping. So when I look at those families and I say, we can give them a solution, I know where they've been and I know where they can be, like we can give them their life back, which this sounds dramatic and maybe over the top, but that's my North Star. And every day when I get up and I start working and I read those customer emails that says, this has been a lifesaver, this has been a game changer, like you've given me my life back. That's why I go to work. If I never made $1 doing this, I would still be happy doing what I'm doing. And so I think to be an entrepreneur and to put in the 12, 15-hour days, there's going to be so many disasters and crises along the way. But if you have a really solid North Star to the why behind what you're doing, and it's your passion, it's your goal, and all those things can come together, it won't feel like work. Like this doesn't feel like a job to me. It feels fun. And I feel so blessed that this is what I get to do. So again, sorry, I have the longest answers for all your questions.
No, but I mean,
that
it's, I'm sure a lot of inventors can relate. I mean, I've had, as a patent attorney, and this is I once missed a flight because I was working on claims, which is the claims portion of a patent. I was right there at the gate. This was well before the pandemic, and I was just working away. And then I lost track of time. And finally I went up to the agent and I said, well, wait a minute, what happened? They said, where were you? I said, I was right there. And she goes, I was announcing it over and over and over again. This is the final call. And I couldn't even imagine when I told my wife that I'm not going to make it that night, I'm going to come the next day. She expected maybe traffic delays or something. And I was like, no, I was right there. I was, 50 feet from the gate, but I just got so engrossed. So, I mean, it's a curse, but it's an absolute blessing to work in something you love because you lose track of time. I've had coffee continuously go cold because I just don't want to take the time to take a sip of it. I'm just like into what I'm doing. So I completely relate with that. I have, it's funny, my wife and I, we have 5 kids ourselves, and I wish your product was around when our kids were younger because a good night's sleep can change everything. I mean, we once had a friend recommend a product for our daughter was wetting her bed, and nothing we tried were we able to break her of it. And this was an undergarment with a little alarm that would sound if there's any wetness there. And it took one night, and it was solved because maybe it was traumatic for her because she was our eldest. And the first time it's like in the middle of the night, beep, 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 beep. And then, but never again. So that the product is like $9.99, but what it did for us, like under $10 to change our life that way, to not have to get up and change the sheets and change clothes and do all of that. And when you talk about your day and the length, the long days you had, if it was a product that didn't help you get a good night's rest, I don't know how you would be able to have 4 kids and
Yeah.
work full time and do all of this. Because then at least with this, with the Dreamland baby blanket, at least you were able to get a good night's rest, or even naps during the day, or whatever it took. So there's one other question, and we're almost out of time, but there's just so much that you have to share. That's wonderful. Another question is your initial thought process on getting people aware of your product. How did you market it? What did you use? Did you have bootstrap marketing as well, or social media? Talk about that.
Since we're a digitally native brand, meaning we don't have a physical presence, online advertising was our number one. So we did the Kickstarter, and I always say we, but it was just me. There's nobody else. My husband was not interested in this. So I did the Kickstarter, and we raised about $25,000. We had about 260 backers. And I thought that, okay, now they're out there, and each of them are going to tell a couple friends, and we're going to have this base, and it's going to grow. And it's not really how it works. Like you say, if you build it, they will come. No, like the day we launched the website, I was like, okay. And we had 1 sale, 2 sales, 3 sales. Yeah, like it was very small. So I built the website on Shopify, which I would recommend to everybody. Don't go to WooCommerce. Don't go anywhere else. Shopify, 100%. Get your email list, Klaviyo, 100%. Don't start with MailChimp. Klaviyo is a little more expensive, but as you grow, it's so much better than anything else. So those two.
Sorry, Tara, if you can spell that, and then Jenny, you can put it in the chat as well.
So just Shopify, and then the second is Klaviyo, Klavyo, I believe it is Klaviyo, yeah, Klavyo. Okay. So those 2 things. So I had that up, and the first month we were up, we had about $4,500 in revenue. And to me, I was like, this is amazing. Like, that's awesome. Now I was still negative overall. But then it was in month 2 that I started. That whole month I was really figuring out, okay, like we got these people, how did they come here? Where did they come from? And how do we get this, to that next level? So month 2, we hired a marketing agency, and they did social media ads. So we started really small. Our first month we did like maybe $2,000 in ad spend, maybe $2,000 or $3,000. And then I also started using influencers. So I started sending the product just in exchange for a post, probably to 30 people in October. So the combination of doing the social media influencers and then having Facebook, and I think we just had Facebook ads at that point, Facebook and Instagram. And so then month 2, we did 30,000 in revenue. So, I mean, we went up 5x in just 1 month by implementing those 2 things that are pretty basic. And, and then it was month over month, like as we would increase our ad spend, there's a direct correlation to increasing revenue. So in August, I think, or no, September, I did hire, it was a one-off guy that I had met through a friend, and he did his, ad buying. They're called media buyers. But this person had a full-time job, and he kind of did it on the side, and it wasn't really, and we just weren't seeing results. Like we were spending the money on the ads, but it was either a 1-to-1, like we'd spend $1, we'd make $1, which is a loss because I still have to pay for the product.
Right.
So I wasn't getting any money. Plus I was paying him. So I was like, oh man, like I don't think I'm going to do this. And I've heard from a lot of people, they try it and they're not with the right group. And then they're like, I'm done. But then I had another friend recommend, hey, this group, and I'd be happy to do an introduction for anybody if they're at the spot where they're ready. You can put my email and I can introduce them. Okay. They don't take all new people, and so that was huge for me. So I would, depending on the product, I would recommend that.
Okay, so Jenny, if you want to put the Inventors Mastermind or private Facebook group, the URL for that, and then any follow-up questions or anything that anyone has, we'll be able to address that. And of course, Tara will check with you and put your email address there as well if you'd like. And thank you so much for being so giving as an entrepreneur, somebody that's launched a product to help others that are struggling and trying to find their way. There's not a lot of people that have done it successfully and are able to provide like useful, like actionable advice the way you have, like the websites, what you use for sending mail, Shopify, all of that. That's advice is gold. We're out of time, but it was an honor to host you today. And we are coming back at 2:00 for everybody else. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be on for the final segment today of the virtual summit.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.